Hello everyone, how's it going? Happy Saturday. It is me, Victoria Baxter of the Saved and Single Ministry. Of course, that means it's time for the Sassy Saturday Special. If you are tuning in for the first time, I'm a Christian life coach, a dating coach, and a relationship coach. I'm the founder, program coordinator, the face behind Saved and Single Ministry, and we are tied to a local nonprofit organization here in Charleston, South Carolina. But you can learn more about me and what I do in the ministry and the coaching and everything at www.thejalministry.com. You can click on Saved and Single for more information about that. What I normally do on Saturdays, again, if you're just now tuning in, the Sassy Saturday Special, or the triple S effect, as I like to call it, it's really a time for me to just talk about things that pertain to single women and single Christian women, and especially those who actually have the desire to get married one day. What I want to talk about today, I feel like I've talked about this a million times, but I still get some questions about it, and it still seems to be brought up a lot, so maybe I haven't taken time to just specifically talk about helpmate. And that's what I want to talk about today. Let me give you a little bit of I'll try to condense it as far as background and story about a little bit of who I am, how I got to be where I am right now, and how it all actually ties into helpmate, funny enough. So again, I am Victoria Baxter. I'm here in Charleston, South Carolina. I'm an author, a minister, like I said, life coach, dating coach, relationship coach, all that other good stuff. Those are what I do. Everything that I do pertains to the nonprofit organization, the ministry, coaching, whatever else. Boom, that's it. I am a single mom of two kids. My kids are now 11 and 13. I think those ages sound about right. I don't know. No one's here to correct me, but that sounds right. I believe they're 11 and 13, if I'm not mistaken. I was in a relationship with their father off and on for about 10 years. And he is somebody where I was actually baby mama number 4. Let's just keep it real. When I met him, he had 3 kids already, 3 different women. And he and I, we started off, it was just the sex thing. It was not supposed to go anywhere, but the sex was good. I stayed. We kept on having sex, and we did a lot of things. And he was 8 years older than me. And eventually I ended up catching feelings for him. Again, we're all grown here. I'm going to be very transparent at this point. When we started off, a lot of times it was, yes, using protection. Then we got to the point where it's like, now we're comfortable with each other. It still wasn't my man. Nobody had been tested for STDs, no nothing. So then we actually got to the point where sometimes we would use condoms, sometimes we didn't. He would never, whatever, release inside of me. But of course, there was a couple of times that maybe we did not put the condom on until halfway through. There were times that we took it off halfway through, but he would still pull out and all that other good stuff. So lo and behold, I ended up pregnant with our first child. We were still not in a relationship, nothing. We were just strictly having sex. Every so often late at night, we might go grab something to eat. Sometimes there was pornography that was involved. We would sometimes watch that together. Again, a whole lot of nonsense was going on, but I was 19 and he was 27. So here's this guy that fits my type. He's tall, he's dark, he's handsome. He's giving me some time. I always was a Christian, so I like the fact that he went to church on Sundays, but he still had some hood in him. He still had the gold chain. He still had the Timbs and all that other good stuff. So of course, at that point, I was still in between finding out who it is that I truly was. I was still learning who I was at that point. So lo and behold, got pregnant, had our son. He was in the hospital for 8 weeks because he was born, 27 weeks, so he was 13 weeks premature. After my son got out the hospital, we started living together. Then we decided we were in an actual relationship. Then we ended up having my daughter. I ended up getting pregnant with her when our son was 1 year old. And there you have it. So again, I fell in love with this man, and I knew that I deserved better. I knew that I could do better. Actually, I was at a point, I wasn't entirely sure if I deserved better. I knew I wanted better, but I didn't know if I deserved better. And I'm also looking at the fact of, well, now you're baby mama number 4. You need to sit tight. This is where you need to be. Who's going to want you now that you're in your 20s, you have 2 kids, whatever else, and not only 2 kids, but I was the one who was labeling myself as baby mama number 4. So I was thinking, I've got to stay put. And honestly, I grew up in a house where my mother and father, they were not there. They had separated. I'm the youngest out of 5 kids. They separated when I was like 4 years old. So I never had daddy in the house. I wanted different for my kids. So I think that also played into why I stuck in that relationship, because I wanted my kids to grow up differently than I did. And again, there were times I was not happy. There were times I knew I was settling, but I was like, okay, but it's really not that bad. I will stay and at least stay for now. Maybe when the youngest turns 18, once they go off to college and move out, then we can break up, or then we can get a divorce. We were never married, but that was always my prayer. I wanted to marry him. I wanted to be with him forever, mainly because I didn't want the shame of being a single mom and a baby mama. That is why I stayed and I stuck it out. And it's amazing to me looking back, because shame will put us in some very serious situations. Shame will put us, and have us wearing labels that we were never meant to wear. Shame is something that comes from the enemy. When you even look back, go to the beginning and look in Genesis, and it even talks about not having any shame, but how Satan is the one that brings all that shame and everything about. So I was willing to, at least temporarily, and I went back and forth on whether or not I was going to stay with him forever, or at least until my daughter turned 18. But I knew that I was going to stick it out at least for then, because of the shame, and I didn't want to have that part with me. So we had already talked about marriage, and I'm praying, because in my mind, the only thing I knew about marriage was that divorce was not an option. I knew that God hated divorce. So if we get married, now we're going to realize that we're stuck, and all those other issues will actually just go away. And we give people a hard time for thinking that way, but we have to keep in mind that a lot of other people and a lot of us previously felt that way at some point. And a lot of times we don't know where it comes from. And sidebar, even with talking to someone just yesterday, it was realizing that a lot of these churches don't have enough things for like single ministries, for the single people. And I know everything is not about finding someone and meeting someone and getting married and not being single. However, just the same way that there are groups for those who are black, white, parents, not parents, Republican, Democrats, whatever else, okay, then there are also things that are just for married people, but there aren't a lot of things, and especially in the church, as it pertains to singles, because we cannot keep telling everyone to wait on God, fix your focus, stop having sex, whatever else. But if we're not telling them how to do it, if we're not giving them support groups and encouragement and whatever else to make those things, whatever, if we would learn to teach people certain things and teach people about the ramifications of actually having and engaging in premarital sex, if we would spend time to teach people ahead of time what marriage is truly about, I think we could actually fix something, and we can actually help the situation and help a lot of the things that we are now dealing with nowadays. Because I'm about to be 34, but I have women that I coach and that come to me and that I deal with in group and individual settings that are older than me, because they have not been properly taught. They are Christians, they are a part of the body of Christ and everything else, but nobody is helping women with a lot of these issues. And that is a big problem, that nobody is spending time to touch them or to teach them or to reach out to them in any shape of the word. But however, the churches are quick to let people know divorce is not an option, divorce is not an option, divorce is not an option. Not a lot of tips of, well, be careful before you get married, or if you're wanting to go through a divorce, this is how not to do it. But instead letting people know divorce is bad, because the Bible even says, God said, I hate divorce and whatever else. So again, I wasn't properly taught, and for the longest time, I knew as long as we got married, we were going to stay together forever, because we both felt the same way as far as divorce was concerned. If you ever want out, you got to die, because it says till death do us part. That's the only way you're getting out of this marriage. That is truly the way that we thought about all of it. So again, we had some of these issues, and yes, I was naive in thinking that marriage was going to fix some of these issues and that we would be okay. So my prayer was always, God, I want us to be married. Help us to do things the right way. Be here with us. Bless us, restore us, and we'll be on fire for you. And I've told y'all this story before, until it took God letting me know, hey, that ain't it. This isn't where you're supposed to be. The season is over. I was like, well, God, well, I know you're saying that, but at the same time, I know what you're capable of doing. So I'm just going to keep on praying because your word says to keep on asking, keep on seeking, keep on knocking. And as long as I believe it, I'll receive it. So I kept praying, and God was saying, hey, that ain't it. But I didn't want to hear that because I didn't need to hear any of that because I know who I serve, because I knew what God was capable of doing. But God, after a while, he kind of went quiet. It was like, okay, I've already told you. So now I'm going to stand back and let you kind of figure it out. Now, times that we again came very close to marriage, and times that we again were still discussing it and whatever else, but God would start causing and allowing certain things to show me that the plan was being disrupted all along, but I did not realize that. I could not recognize that. I couldn't see it because I only knew the power of the God that I served. Lo and behold, yes, we did finally split up, which I knew it had to happen because, for one, while I was in that relationship, God was already speaking to me about sexual sin. But I was like, well, I can't give up sex because we started by having sex. We are very sexually active. We both have high sex drives. This man is not going to wait if I tell him that I want to have sex and that sex is coming off the table. So it's like I was, in a sense, choosing him and almost making him my God because I knew what God was telling me. But I was like, oh God, but I can't do that because what's it going to mean for this relationship? So we would separate, and then we came back together and broke out all of the good stuff. And after a while, I just knew it was done. It was a done deal. And we just knew it was time to leave it alone. And again, times that I broke up with him, kicked him out, times that, he said he was going to come back home and then he had chose not to. So it was even at one point realizing, I'm not as in control of this situation. I think God knew I was never going to leave him alone for good. So it's like God had to set it up where it was almost like he was making some of the decisions, because then for me, I'm not going to chase after a man. I'm not going to deal with rejection or anything like that. So if somebody walks away from me, then I'm going to let it be done. And God was just really trying to show me, hey, there is something I've been trying to show you all along. There's something I've been trying to do all along. And I know in your mind, nobody will wait on you if you give up sex. I know in your mind, nobody is going to wait on you, or nobody's going to want you if you actually come and bring 2 kids to the table. But I have a plan and I have someone for you. And I was like, okay. Now, again, God was talking, but I was not listening. So I was like, okay, that relationship didn't work. So then I started dating other people, and I started having sex with other people. And I was doing the online dating and the casual sex and whatever else, still not listening to God the entire time, until I did finally make that decision, December 31st, 2016, to eliminate sex. I've told you all last year how I met a man that I thought was going to be my husband. I did not tell him that I was abstinent. When I did finally reveal that to him, he said he was cool with it. But then it was getting to the point I no longer wanted to wait, and he was finding it hard to wait. Because when I gave up sex, it was, it was kind of religious reasons, but really it was saying, hey, I'm praying for a husband. My actions are not lining up with that. I'm having sex with men that are not my husband. They're not trying to make me a wife. Some of them, they're not even my boyfriends. So it's time to take sex off the table and show that I offer more than just opening up my legs. I'm giving pieces of myself away, and I'm letting people deposit stuff in me and subtracting all this stuff, but they're not adding anything to me. If anything, they're taking things away. So that is why I made the decision to give up sex. Giving up sex is what caused that relationship with the guy last year that I loved to end. And this brings me to what I want to talk about now that I spent however much minutes giving this opening of whatever. That heartbreak did something to me that I'd never experienced before in my life. And again, I'm over it now, and that's why I can talk a lot about it. And I talk a lot because I knew that I had to go through that, because it played a large part as to where I am now, who I am now, the single woman's ministry, the book that I wrote, everything. It was all a part of the plan. I didn't see that at the time. He was there on assignment, but I fell for the assignment, and I thought he was going to be my husband. So when it didn't work out, I was crying. I was distraught. I was doing everything, and I couldn't figure out why it happened that way. And then God actually took the time to let me know, hey, I've got somebody for you. But right now, I need you to worry about these women. I need you to worry about my daughters. I need you to use all that you've learned excuse me, your knowledge and the ministry and everything else, I need you to share that with other women. So I was like, okay, and that's when I wrote the book, and that's when I started the ministry, and that's when I started, doing the small groups and everything else, and being more, hands-on and whatever else as it pertains to single Christian women. During that time, what I actually realized is, in my time spent with God, because that heartbreak, it threw me in the arms of God, where I was reading, I was studying, I was praying, and then I was getting revelation and realizing that I was wrong about marriage. And God was saying during that time, well, now that you know the truth, I need you to tell other people. Now, one thing that God did say to me is, hey, your husband is coming, but he is going to need your help with something. There's something that only you can help him with. And again, I was just like, okay, I wonder what it is, what's going on, what kind of help is he going to need, whatever. I always wanted to get married based on what I thought marriage was, based on looking at other people's marriages, based on what I see in TVs and movies, based on sex and traveling and having help with bills and someone to help me raise the kids, and and being cuddled on the couch, and us in the kitchen being cutesy, cooking for each other and throwing grape tomatoes in each other's mouths, whatever else the case might be. But once I really started focusing on God and I became intentional about my Bible reading, is when I realized that I was so wrong about marriage. And I'm realizing now how many other people are wrong about marriage. So let's talk about helpmate. I know we talked about marriage matters, and I know we talked about the provider and the protector, and I know we've talked about a little bit of everything for these Sassy Saturday specials. I really want to discuss helpmate during this time, because it's a term that people use but they don't understand. And again, people are very much fixated on what the man must bring to the table and how he must be godly and what his spiritual journey must look like and everything of that nature. Let's examine our roles as a wife and as a helpmate, and maybe that will provide some insight. I study this a lot because we underestimate the roles vastly, and it was something that I did also. I highly and grossly underestimated the roles of a wife and what marriage is all about. And now that I'm dealing with single women on a regular basis, now that I do the prayer requests, and again, even with after group coachings, if somebody has a question, or even individual coaching for dating and relationship coaching. And one of the things I get often, as I've talked about, are females that are ready to get married now. They're sick of being single now. They're ready to be a wife now. They want their husband now. So the thing that I always have to ask is, why do you want to get married? Why do you want to be a wife? Why do you want to be a husband? Why? I need to know your why. And as I've said before, I listen to some of the answers that people give, and it's making me realize that others are also underestimating the roles of a wife and what a helpmate is truly all about. Because if your main reason for wanting to be married is companionship, or to have sex without feeling guilty, or to have somebody to travel with, and all those other things, you're going to be in for a rude awakening. If it's like, I've also heard some people saying, something I've said before on my own, is because I want help. I need the financial help. It is hard, paying bills and taking care of children and doing everything else alone. It's hard, making ends meet and whatever else. I want a man, since his role is provider and protector anyway, someone who can come in and help me with the kids, help me when I need a break, help me with this. I want them to help. And that's not what marriage is about. And that is not a good reason to get married. Because one thing that I've spoken about also is, it's not fair that means a man is going to be coming in to a relationship with me, coming into a marriage with me, and he is going to have a job that he did not apply for, and he's going to have a job that he didn't even know that he was taking on, because I already have this list ready of all the things that I'm expecting from him and all the things that I am wanting him to do. And that is not how it is supposed to work. Not everyone, a lot of females are always focusing on what a man can do for them. But when you look at helpmate, and when you look at Ezer Kenegdo in the Bible, we have a job as wives, it is our role to help men. We are created to help them specifically with something. And with even God, even, stressing and making that clear to me and saying, hey, he's going to need your help with something. There's only something that you can help him with. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, whatever, no biggie. But as I continue to read the Bible, and I'm reading about a wife, and I'm reading about a husband, and I'm looking at all these marriages, again, looking at Abraham and Sarah and David and Abigail, and I'm looking at Adam and Eve and so many different things, and we don't realize exactly how much that we're actually supposed to do. And one thing I try to get women to not change their mind, but I try to get them to open up their minds, because a lot of people are determined that their man has to come packaged a certain way, that he better be 100% godly. He better, have a wonderful prayer life, and he needs to be submitted to God and walking with God and in the church and reading the Bible and whatever else. And I am not saying anything is wrong with any of those things. I cannot stress enough. Make no mistakes. I am not saying that is a bad thing. What I am saying is, while the man is the head of household, and yes, he is to be submitted to God, we are still responsible for covering him and being there spiritually. And a lot of times the woman ends up being the spiritual head. It doesn't mean you're running the household, but it means that you are the one who is covering him. And even as a Conegno, as it breaks down and looking at the roles of a wife, it is talking about even helping him spiritually and helping keep him accountable to Christ and helping keep him accountable before God. In the Bible, it doesn't really state anything about how a man is to bring us to God and how he is to teach us about God. Both of us should have our own relationships with God independent of each other. That should be going on beforehand. One thing I even talked about, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it was last week or whatever, about one of the things, but the standard should absolutely be that a man is a Christian. I don't think it's fair to dictate how often he should be going to church, how often he should be praying, and certain things like that. And I only say that because I have seen situations time and time again where men who were in church, always praying, know the Bible, the fruits that they display are lacking and rotten. There is no patience, there is no joy, there is no peace, there is no love, none of those things. I have come across many men who display beautiful, fresh fruits of the Spirit, where they are full of love, full of peace, full of joy, full of patience, and they believe in God, but they don't maybe quite have an established prayer life. They maybe don't go to church as often as they should. Maybe they've never read the Bible, or they know some of the scriptures or whatever else. If we get to the point where we are so determined that a man has to be exactly what we say and how we want it, we are putting God in a box, and we are saying that the way that he can and will do things, it has to line up with exactly the way that we say. And that's not cool, and that's not fair, because you never know what it is that God is trying to do through you. Screw what he's trying to do to you. You have no idea what he's trying to do through you, and how you might be the answer to somebody's prayer. How somebody might be praying right now, God, I really want to get to know you. I'm trying. Help me, help me with this. And God is looking like, oh, look at that. She over there, she has a teaching spirit. He has a teachable spirit. I want them to cross paths, because she's not even aware of what she might be able to do in his life. This has nothing to do with salvation dating. This has nothing to do with salvation marriage. This has nothing to do with thinking you can win somebody over, because again, the standard should already be that this is a man who is in Christ. This is a man who believes in God, believes Jesus is the Son of God, believes that Jesus was crucified, dead, and was buried, and on the third day he rose again, believes in the Holy Spirit, the whole nine. And if you have a man and that is the start for that, that is a start. Now, I'm not saying leave it at that, because I know plenty of men who believe in that, But again, their fruits don't line up with anything. So it's just keeping in mind, again, you can be specific in your prayers. You can have your list. You can have your desires, but you can't tell God that it has to come this way. And you're not going to slap scriptures on it and say, but God, you said you'll give me the desires of my heart. God, you said ask in your name. God, you said if I keep on asking, keep on seeking, keep on knocking. God, you say all I have to do is have faith the size of a mustard seed and blah, blah, blah. Because you don't know how God might be wanting to use you in a situation. When you read the Bible and you see all the roles of wives and different wives in their marriages, you get a whole different outlook when it comes to the roles of a wife and being the helpmate. We have a huge role to fulfill. Make no mistakes. Now, the man, yes, they are head of household. They are to provide. They are to protect. They are to love us the way that Christ loves the church. Absolutely. But we have something that we are supposed to do as well. And we are to help them, whatever. And oftentimes this does mean spiritually. But we are to help them. We are to have their back and to support and uplift and encourage and motivate and be their peace, and to also display the fruits of the Spirit, and to love them and to respect them and to submit to them and all those other good things. And like I said, I'm always hearing about these women who are mentioning godly men. But like I've said before, when I ask women, well, what does godly mean to you? Most people can't even answer that question. It's because we're at this point where everyone is all about, well, I'm over here hidden and I'm waiting on my Boaz or waiting on whoever else. And I know that God is going to bring me a godly man because I deserve this. And he needs to be able to read the Bible with me. And he needs to be able to show me this and teach me that. And I should be able to ask him questions and whatever else. If you want that, fine. What is so wrong with y'all reading the Bible together? What is wrong? Or are you saying, are you going to be turned off if this man is reading the Bible and he doesn't comprehend something and he asks you a question about it and you're going to be looking at him like, why don't you know the answer to that? Like, how are you going to lead me? You're supposed to be fully submitted to God and blue, 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 all this other stuff. And I'm not saying that's you, but I know that's a lot of you because I've seen the post, I've seen the comments, I've seen the questions. I get flooded my inbox all the time, the text messages and everything else, telling God how it better look, how he better come, how it better be presented. And that is not the way this works. Like I said, we all need to have our own relationship with God, independent of each other, as in before meeting each other. Those are the things that matter to me. I need to know that he is at least a believer, and that from there we can at least be friends. Because if you don't believe, you already know that you're not somebody I will date, enter into a relationship with, accept an engagement ring from, or marry. If you're not a believer, If you have a desire to learn and you want to be taught, I am all for it. As a friend or for dating, and maybe even in a committed relationship, whatever, because now I see that you're at least knowing that there's something missing from your life. And I love to talk, obviously. Everybody knows that, and especially as it pertains to Christianity, love, dating, relationships, marriage, whatever else. So I am all for, as long as a man who is open to it, that is what matters. And again, if I have whatever going on and knowing that he can pray with me and pray for me, I don't need him using crazy, an extreme vernacular and, using the big words or even going with the thou saith the Lord and whatever else. Can you open your mouth and pray? Because as long as you know how to pray and as long as you can open your mouth and you believe that those prayers are going to be answered, that is a starting point. Preferences, standards, and potential. Go back and look at that video from 2 weeks ago, because that is a big problem right now with where we are. I do know that the Bible says, again, and because I've talked about even marrying a man if he's not a believer. I know that a lot of women are just like, hey, as long as he treats me right, he doesn't have to be a Christian. I don't really care. I warn against that only because I don't see it being smart. And again, some people, they're not Christians, but you don't know, they still might be spiritual. And you don't know what those spirits are. And now if you have two spirits joining together, and especially in intercourse and going to bed together, now you got two spirits that are going to be warring and fighting with each other. I'm well aware that the Bible talks about wives who are godly and how you can win over your husbands, and things like that and whatever else. But again, I'm not telling God how he can't do it, but that's the route I don't even want to take. Now, again, some women also have to keep in mind, if you're saying, Victoria, screw you, I'm going to wait for my godly man and my this and my that and whatever else, and someone who knows the word and whatever else, that's fine too. I know of also plenty of situations where a man and a woman were both Christians and on fire for God, and then they got married, and then somewhere along the way, that man started to pull back from God. It's like, yeah, I'm over this whole God thing. I know of one couple personally, close friends actually, that went through this same exact thing. They were both believers. They were both on fire, going to church, raising their kids that way, the whole nine. And after a while, the husband was like, yeah, I'm kind of over this whole God thing. And then it was arguments in whether or not she was going to be allowed to keep taking the children to church. And it became a big mess. And I'm not speaking that all over anybody. I'm just saying, you never know how things are going to happen. You never know who God is going to bring into your life. You never know what you're going to have to do as a wife. And that is why it's so important to understand your role as being the spiritual helper and being the one. You worry about your prayer life. And that is why it's also important for you to pray over his prayer life now. Because a lot of times we're so busy praying on meeting a husband or wanting a husband instead of taking the time to pray specifically for your husband and praying for who he is now and praying for his purity and praying for his spiritual journey and his relationship with Christ and all those things. Praying over his credit score and his height and praying, all the whatever. There are bigger fish to fry when it comes to praying for this man with where he is and letting that be that. So for those of you who are single, like I always say, become the person that the person you're looking for is looking for. Then keep in mind your role as a wife. And if you're unsure of the roles and whatever else the case might be, read 1 Peter chapter 3. Read Ephesians chapter 5. Read 1 Corinthians chapter 7, and you can get a very clear picture of how that is going to look. But I just want everyone to keep in mind your husband is going to need something from you. It is something that only you can help him with. And it might be something spiritually, it may not be. But what it is that you do have to keep in mind, there are no ready-made men. And what I mean ready-made is that it's something that you haven't fulfilled yet. Yeah, okay, he can be walking in his purpose and he might be whatever, already running that business, already at his job, whatever. He might even already have the house. He might already have the car. He might have whatever. They're not complete because it's something that you are going to bring to the table. It's something you have a job to do. I had to take a step back and look and realize that all the men that were around me, they all needed something. And I know for a fact that me personally right now, that I'm still single. I know I had to do the ministry and everything else, but at least now looking back, one thing I do know is that I'm single because I wanted them all to be complete. I wanted them to have it going on 100%. As far as everything they already had dominion over and everything that was already underneath their feet, I needed them to be 100% complete and ready. And that they only needed me to come in and help spend their money and for me to, plan trips and cook for them and clean and whatever else. And if you think that that is all that marriage is about, you've got another thing coming. Because if it's two things that Satan is out to destroy, churches and families / marriage. So Satan cannot stand marriages, especially marriages that are keeping Christ at the center. He is out to steal, kill, destroy, and get in the middle of every single last bit of that. So if you really think that you're going to be good to go once you get married and whatever else, no, that's a whole nother field of attacks, spiritual attacks, and mayhem and whatever else. And we know that to be true. If I'm thinking that he is going to already be ready, then I'm not ready for marriage. And if you are thinking, whoever your husband is, that he is already going to be ready, I mean ready as in 100%, not needing anything, you're not ready for marriage. If you're not willing to help him, if you're not willing to realize that it's not always about you, then you're not ready for marriage. Because that's what we as women do. But what a man can do for us, well, he better be able to do this, and he better be able to do this, and da 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 da. I need a man who's going to be able to. We're looking at all these different things we're expecting him to do and for him to bring to the table. Evaluate what you bring to the table. Make sure that you can offer the same things that you're expecting from him. And I mean that as far as, again, your income or your credit or whatever else. And of course, yeah, provider, protector, but you can't meet somebody and just think right off the rip while dating, all right, well, we're dating now. Oh, you're courting me now, so you better start paying my bills before we get married. I need to make sure that you can take care of me and the 5 kids I'm coming along with. No. You're just expecting certain things. Do you have and do you possess what it is you're expecting him to have? Covering a man spiritually. Can you pray for him now? Because he is going through things that you know nothing about. There are attacks that he's facing that you know nothing about. Can you vow to have his back now? Because things are going to come up. Can you make that promise and commitment now that you are going to do certain things before he comes into the picture again? Provider and protector over here, yes. But you, helpmate, as a connector over here, yes. I know when God gave me that scripture, when he told me that my husband was going to need something from me, and he actually gave me 1 Corinthians 11:9. I don't even remember what it was. And man was not made for woman, but woman was made for man. And it was crazy because when God gave me that day in my room, it wasn't, I was reading the Bible and then boom, that scripture was like, okay, Victoria, I have this for you. It was like I literally heard in my head 1 Corinthians 11:9. And I was like, okay. So I'm flipping through the Bible and I finally came to it. And it's like God led me right there because I was crying saying, God, when is it going to be my turn? When am I going to meet somebody? When am I going to get married? Why did I have to go through that heartbreak? I want to be loved. I want to be this and da 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 da. And God was like, first of all, I love you. Second of all, love yourself. Your husband is coming. He's going to need something from you. I need you to worry about doing this ministry and the book and everything else first. Oh, and then go read the scripture so that I can really solidify or really remind you that he is going to need something from you. And so when I got that scripture, I was like, oh, okay. I am made for him. He needs me. I don't need him. Because God had to tell me repeatedly, let me be your husband first. The things that you are wanting from a man and from a husband, I got you. I got that. I can handle all those things. So God was saying, stop wanting a man for all these other things. Worry about focusing on me right now at this point and see what I can offer you. See what I can do for you. See how much I love you. Use this time to prepare and get ready and to become the person that the person you're looking for is looking for. Take time to find God, find yourself, love God, and love yourself, and get ready. Because once you're ready, that is when you will cross paths with this man. And we know he who finds a wife, and again, I said finds came from matzah, which means happens upon, stumbles across, whatever. He's not out looking for you, but he is going to come across you. And him being ready, but still needing something, he's going to see you who is ready and needing something. And he is going to realize that's a wife. I would be foolish to not make her a wife. And this is how he finds favor, because he realizes the good thing that God put in front of him. One thing I talked about in the Boaz book was the number 22. And what I had said was, it was interesting because I had just had a dream about the number 22 the night before, and I couldn't figure out why. And when I woke up the next morning and God was showing me in Genesis 2, chapter 22, about how Eve was ready and created for man, because he had just said a couple of verses ago, it is not good for man to be alone. So he created her. And when she was created, she was already good to go, ready. And that came from 22. And I was like, okay, I got to keep it in mind. Women have to be ready. Women have to be ready. Women have to be ready. And I was like, oh, okay, so the woman being ready and then the man being ready, but him still needing something. And when he comes across the woman and sees, and that's how he gets favor, because he notices this ready woman, this healed woman, this complete woman, this woman who isn't saying that she's hidden, but she's really not. When he sees this woman who is content being single and minding her own business and walking in her purpose with a good relationship with God, that's how he finds favor, because he chooses to make her a wife. Let me write that down. And it came from where? Proverbs 18:22. So a woman being ready in verse 22. A man finding favor by seeing a woman who is ready, 22. And I had just done what? Dreamt about the number 22. And it might sound weird to you, but again, God speaks to me in some crazy ways. And that's what I had to get out of that situation. So it's like now 22 comes to me like all the time, and I always hold on to that. So I know now I will never be ready if I always expect him to be 100% ready. You will never be ready if you expect him to be 100% ready. Because even Adam had it all. Adam had dominion. Adam had everything going for himself. But God said what? It is not good for man to be alone. I didn't create you to be alone. I will create a helper that is suitable for you. A helper. Not someone for you to help, but someone who is going to help you. I don't care that you got all this stuff, but you need somebody to help you manage this stuff. You need someone who's going to hold you accountable and bring you closer to me and keep you, under the discipline and whatever else of me. Because this man, he is going to provide. But what are you going to do with his provision? Because when he brings you that meat, are you going to give him a meal? If he provides that house, are you going to give a home? When he brings the seed, are you going to give him a son? He's going to provide these things. What are you going to do with what this man is going to provide for you? There's a vision in mind. He's going to bring all the provision. What are you going to do before the vision? Are you getting yourself together now, and are you ready for the vision? And if nothing else that you take away from us, it's just keeping in mind that when it comes to marriage and when it comes to a husband and everything else, their jobs are not to help us. Their jobs are to love, provide, protect, respect. And that's a conversation for another day, because people who are still doing the whole, oh, but I'm independent, I don't need no man, and da-da-da-da-da. That is not I've said that before, and I can't stress that enough. That is not going to get you a man if you're wanting one or trying to get one or whatever else. Because if you're repeatedly professing how you don't need a man, then a man is not going to want you. Most men, a man that is walking with God, or a man that knows, hey, I'm a provider and I'm a protector and whatever else, they need to feel needed and wanted. And if you're making sure that a man knows that you don't need him and you can do it all on your own, this man, he doesn't see no purpose in being there. He doesn't see, there's nothing for him to do. So please just do me a favor and keep that in mind. And I hope y'all get what I'm saying as far as this whole helpmate thing is concerned. Thank you for tuning in to the Sassy Saturday Special. Again, it's me, your girl, Victoria Baxter, Lady V of the Saved and Single Ministry, www.thejalministry.com. Click on Saved and Single, or even if you're watching this on YouTube or the Facebook page, scroll back through the videos and you'll see all the other videos that I've been doing. I've been doing the Sassy Saturday Special every week now for a couple of months. So there's so many more topics and everything else to be a part of and to take part in. But God bless you all. I love you all, and I will talk to you all later. Bye-bye.